This is News Conference Extra with Conan Nolan.
Good morning and welcome to News Conference Extra, a special segment of Today in LA Weekend. Joining us from Washington, Kristen Welker, host of Meet the Press, which airs every Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. So, Kristen, let's first talk about the talk of Washington is about Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House. There was a piece in The Atlantic which said, hey, maybe this guy is good at this. And I hear that the talk of the cocktail parties in D.C. is, wow, this guy navigated a really tricky vote, that is, for the military support for Ukraine, for Israel, for Taiwan, and was able to handle the right wing of his party, Marjorie Taylor Greene, in a way nobody expected. Tell us about the assessment of Mike Johnson and whether or not his stock has risen amongst not just people within the Washington establishment, but within his own party.
I think it has, Conan, and I think you hit the nail on the head. He was able to navigate what once looked impossible, getting Ukraine aid passed. How did he do it? He made the case over and over again, along with President Biden, along with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who I talked to on the program this Sunday, and who said that in his conversations with President Zelensky, he praised the leadership. So what does it mean for Mike Johnson? He broke these aid packages to Ukraine, to Israel, to Taiwan into separate pieces. Some people said, that's crazy. What are you doing? You'll never be able to guarantee that all of those aid packages passed. Instead, what it did, Conan, was it allowed there to be a protest vote on each of the individual pieces. And that was part of his calculus for getting Ukraine aid, which was hugely controversial, which had a lot of opposition within the Republican Party, a lot of Republicans who said we've got to deal with the border first. It allowed them to vote their opposition. It got over the line with Democratic support. So what happens now? You have Marjorie Taylor Greene on the sidelines threatening to try to oust him. But look, it doesn't seem like there's a real groundswell of support for that. There are two other House Republicans who've also been quite critical and said that they would support ousting him. They want him to resign. But he's getting bipartisan praise, and Democrats have privately signaled they might be willing to save him if his speakership were brought up for a vote. Every passing day, though, Conan, that he's not having a vote on his speakership, I think he gets a little bit stronger. And you're absolutely right. The talk of the town this week and weekend has been about the fact that in the wake of all of this, people are realizing that relatively newly installed House Speaker Mike Johnson, who, of course, replaced Kevin McCarthy, has shown that he can get these complicated things across the finish line.
Right. The narrative that you hear is leadership works. Take a stand. Be committed to it and don't try to satisfy everybody. And some have applied that to President Biden. When it comes to the protests on college campuses, we hear him try to split the baby. He says, I'm against anti-Semitism, but I'm also against people who don't appreciate what Palestinians are going through. OK, we understand that. Nobody wants this war at the moment. They would like it to end. But one gets the impression the president is trying to satisfy a core element of the progressive wing who are not going to be satisfied with anything other than complete divestment and a withdrawal of all military support for Israel.
There's no doubt President Biden is trying to walk a fine line against the backdrop of an extraordinarily complicated mix of voices who are turning out to protest on these college campuses all across the country. You're absolutely right. The president has strongly condemned the anti-Semitism that we have seen on college campuses. At the same time, he has reaffirmed people's constitutional right to a peaceful protest. And so in so doing, that has opened him up to criticism, including from former President Donald Trump, who's stuck in a New York City courtroom for that hush money trial, who came out and talked to the cameras and said basically what you're saying, that he's trying to have it both ways. So the question is, how will this play out on the campaign trail? It matters particularly when you are talking about younger voters, Conan. The fact that younger voters were so critical to President Biden's election in 2020 He needs them not just to turn out, but to turn out in force in 2024. And right now, his poll numbers have been sagging because of that. That's one of the weakest parts of his support. So there's no doubt that the administration is trying to get that back while also trying to navigate what is happening in the Middle East, turning up pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu to do more to protect and defend civilian lives and to do more to address the humanitarian crisis. So if the situation in Gaza doesn't change by Election Day, that is going to be politically hugely problematic for President Biden. There's no doubt about that.
And looking at the Supreme Court hearing on the immunity for Donald Trump, his attorneys claiming that the president has complete and utter immunity from all prosecution, even after he leaves office. You certainly get the impression that the justices are they're going to split the baby, saying, listen, he does not deserve immunity from prosecution with regard to laws that are not fundamental to the job of being the executive. So there will be a test as to whether or not any kind of prosecution reaches the threshold. And in order for that to happen, they're going to kick it down to a lower court. So this is not going to be resolved before the election. This case, when it comes to the president doing everything he possibly can, in the view of the Department of Justice, to thwart the electorate in the 2020 election.
Well, and remember what Donald Trump and his legal team's strategy was from the beginning, Conan: delay, delay, delay. So what has happened here in this Supreme Court case, this extraordinary day of oral arguments where the justices, you're absolutely right, were very skeptical that a president should have absolute immunity, but seem to suggest there should be some guardrails. The fact of the matter is, if this gets kicked back to a lower court, by all accounts, it seems like that's where this is headed. This is not going to be heard before the election, and that would be a big victory for former President Donald Trump. This election interference case is potentially one of the most politically challenging for him. So we will wait and see what the court decides, likely sometime in late June. Meanwhile, he is in New York for that hush money trial, and that has kept him off the campaign trail. Now, he has used breaks as a chance to go and talk to reporters in the hallway and to get his campaign message out that way. It will be notable, and we'll have to wait some time to see what, if any, impact this has on the overall election.
Who's on the program?
Well, I have sat down with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. I've talked to him about all of these subjects that you and I are discussing here right now, including the issue of presidential immunity. He told me he stands by his comments that he made in 2021 during Trump's second impeachment trial that no one is immune from the law. So that was a notable exchange. I talked to him about these protests on college campuses, as well as a host of other issues. So it's a really remarkable exchange. And then I'm going to talk to Democratic Senator Tim Kaine. He is out with a new book. I will talk to him about the book as well as these protests on college campuses. And we talked to civil rights icon Ruby Bridges. So another jam-packed Sunday, Conan.
If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. Kristen Welker, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Following Meet the Press Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, we will be taking a look at all the angles on the protests taking place at USC and UCLA. And plus, Catherine Barger, a member of the Metro Board of Directors, a member of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, says she's afraid to take the Metro. We talked to her about the remedy of keeping the Metro safe. This after a terrible murder that took place on the Universal Station this past week. And we talked with State Senator Nancy Skinner of Oakland about her bill in the legislature that would fast-track the license of abortion providers in Arizona so they can bring their patients to California to end pregnancies. That's News Conference at 9 o'clock following Meet the Press. We'll see you then.